හරිම සුමුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Sunday, the 22nd of October 2023. Peace to the Middle East. President informed Sri Lanka is committed to providing full support to the UN to bring peace to the Middle East. IMF progress. IMF financing assurances review to focus on progress made with debt restructuring. Confirmation. DNA test to be carried out to confirm the identity of the deceased Sri Lankan national. Company delays. Annual reports of over 600,000 companies not submitted to the Registrar of Companies.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and a warm welcome to today's edition of AdaDerana's English News First at 9. I'm Jonathan Benedict. Let's take a look at our stories for this evening, starting with our top story right now. The National Building Research Organisation has urged 316 families in the Haputale and Haldemulla areas to immediately evacuate over risks of potential landslides caused by the persisting adverse weather conditions impacting the island. Taking this into consideration, the NBRO extended early landslide warnings. The Department of Meteorology, however, does expect heavy rains to gradually decrease from tomorrow onwards.
Several areas of the island continue to be severely affected by heavy rainfall. The highest rainfall received during the past 24 hours was reported from Lahugala in the Ampara district, recording a rainfall of 107.5 millimeters. The Badulla district is reportedly the most affected area by the prevailing inclement weather. Several landslides were reported on the road between Haputale and Berigala yesterday due to heavy rainfall in the area. The police, together with the army and residents, cleared one lane of the road to allow the flow of traffic. However, landslides occurred in the area once again. Subsequently, traffic on the route was disrupted for over 3 hours. In the meantime, residents of 27 houses in the Sherwood estate in Haputale were relocated to houses of their relatives due to the high risk of landslides in the area. On the same note, members of 15 families in the Galkanda area were also relocated to a shelter put up in the Kelburn Tamil Vidyalaya in Haputale. District Secretary of Badulla, Prabhat Abewardhan, highlighted the National Building Research Organisation had urged 316 families in Haputale and Haldemulla to evacuate over landslide risks. The NBRO had further urged 33 families in the Mediabad area who were evacuated not to return to their residencies due to the continued risks of potential landslides. The water level of the Ravana Falls rose owing to the heavy rainfall in the Bandaravela area. Traffic on the Valimadanur main road was disrupted due to a landslide which occurred in the stretch of road from Randepura Junction to the World's End through Ambevela. Against this backdrop, the Met Department highlighted that the inclement weather is expected to gradually decrease from tomorrow.
Thunderstorms were reported in various regions across the country, including the eastern, Uva, Sabaragamuwa, central and southern provinces. Cloud formations are still in the developmental stage, indicating that showers or thunder showers are expected to persist in several regions of the island throughout the night. In particular, thunderstorms accompanied by severe lightning are anticipated in multiple areas, including the central, Sabaragamuwa, north central, eastern and Uva provinces. As a result, we kindly request the public to exercise cautions and take necessary measures to mitigate potential damage from localized strong winds and lightning during these thunderstorms. Moreover, heavy rainfall exceeding 100 millimeters is expected in some locations within the central, Sabaragamuwa, Uva and eastern provinces. Additionally, misty conditions are anticipated in specific areas of the central, Sabaragamuwa and Uva provinces during the early morning hours tomorrow. However, the rainy spell that has prevailed across the island for the past few days is is likely to subside to some extent in the coming days, commencing tomorrow.
Health officials meanwhile raised concerns about the spread of diseases among the public due to continued rains.
පවතින කාලගුණ තත්ත්වයත් එක්ක බොහෝ ප්‍රදේශවල ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් බෝන රෝග තුනක් පැතිර යමින් තියෙනවා විශේෂයෙන් අක්ෂි රෝගයක් පැතිර යමින් තියෙනවා ඒ වගේම පාචන රෝගයක් පැතිර යමින් තියෙනවා ඒ වගේම උණ සහ කැස්ස ඇතිවන ශ්වසන පද්ධතිය ආසාදනයක් පැතිර යමින් තියෙනවා මේ රෝග තුනම පාලනය කර ගැනීම සඳහා පෞද්ගලික පිරිසුදුකම ඉතාම වැදගත් ඒ වගේම මහ ජනතාව වැඩියෙන් ගැවසෙන ස්ථාන වලට එවැනි රෝග ලක්ෂණ සහිතව දරුවන් හෝ මහ ජනතාව ගමන් කිරීමෙන් වළකින්න පවතින ගම් වතුර තත්ත්වය පහව යනවත් එක්කම ඩෙන්ගු රෝගීන්ගේ වැඩිවීමක් වාර්තා වෙමින් තියෙනවා කෙසේ වෙතත් ඒ වළක්වා ගැනීම සඳහා මහ ජනතාව සම්පූර්ණයෙන් සහාය ලබා දෙන ලෙස අපි ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
Meanwhile, taking the prevailing weather patterns into consideration, the National Building Research Organisation further extended early landslide warnings.
By considering existing rainfall condition, landslide early warning message has been extended up to tomorrow. Warning level 2 alert amber warning was issued to Haldumulla and Hampatali Division Secretary in Badula District, Walasmulla and Katuvana Division Secretary in Hamathura District, Aturliya, Malimbada, Tihagoda, Kamurupitiya, Kirinda Puhulwella, Akurasa, Pasgoda, Pitabaddara, Matharapo Gravats, Hakmana, Kotapola, Mulatiyana and Velipitiya Division Secretary in Mathura District, Kuruvita, Ratnapura, Ahliyagoda, Veligepola, Kalavana, Opanayaka and Alapatha Divisional Secretary in Ratnapura District. Warning level 1 watch yellow warning was issued to Bandaravela and Passara Division Secretary in Badula District, Bopi Poddala, Imaduva, Elpitia, Golpo Gravats, Niyagama, Akmimana, Nagoda, Yakalamulla, Ambalangoda, Neluva, Badegam and Thavalama Division Secretary in Gold District, Okavel and Biliatha Division Secretary in Hamadura District, Ingiri and Valalavita Division Secretary in Kaldara District, Arispattu, Udapalata, Ududumbara, Pasbaya Korle, Udunura and Pathadumbara Division Secretary in Kandy District, Kotmale and Amagama Korle Division Secretary in Norili District, Ibulpe, Ayagama, Balangoda, Godakavela, Velmadulla, Nivitigala, Kirialla, Kahavatta and Kolona Division Secretary in Ratnamura District.
The International Monetary Fund's mission in Sri Lanka said that the IMF Financing Assurances Review focuses on whether adequate progress has been made with the debt restructuring process in Sri Lanka. IMF Senior Mission Chief for Sri Lanka, Peter Bro, addressing a media briefing, said that the IMF expects to have confidence that debt treatment in line with the debt targets of the program will be concluded in a timely manner.
Today, the Chinese FM has also assured President Wickremesinghe of support. But could you please tell us what this means in terms of debt treatment? Because on the one hand, you have the Paris Club-led creditors committee, where India and Japan have been keen on creditor parity. And on the other, we see China and Sri Lanka bilaterally negotiating debt treatment, but we don't know the specifics of the negotiations. So does the IMF have a role in ensuring creditor parity and transparency in finalizing the debt treatment plan? And how are you really monitoring these two aspects?
Our role is we want to be sure that debt sustainability is being restored in Sri Lanka. This is essentially defined through the debt targets that were set in the program when the program commenced in March. So these are targets with respect to the debt stock and with respect to the debt service in domestic and in foreign currency, and also with respect to the debt relief that's needed within the program period. So we will be monitoring whether the treatments that are being agreed are compliant with those targets. Sri Lanka has committed to follow the principle of parity and transparency, and those are principles that are very important for creditors to decide to participate in the restructuring. Hence, they are of interest to the IMF on a secondary basis.
I wanted to understand, in terms of the financing assurances views, what kind of developments and outcomes would constitute adequate progress for the IMF?
Essentially, we need to see a clear path to restoring debt sustainability in Sri Lanka. The financing assurances review focus on whether adequate progress has been made with the debt restructuring and whether we can have confidence that treatments in line with these debt targets that I described will be concluded in a timely manner. Really, the objective here is to see Sri Lanka on a clear path towards restoring debt sustainability.
Meanwhile, commenting on the recent reforms in Sri Lanka's power sector, IMF officials said that in order to mitigate the impact of the increased tariff on vulnerable groups in society, the government must come up with a strong social safety net.
Set an electricity Cost recovery is crucially important to eliminate financial losses in the electricity sector because at the end of the day, that becomes a burden on the taxpayers, including on those who are poor and vulnerable. So it's one of the key elements of the fund-supported program in Sri Lanka. At the same time, as Sarvat has highlighted, the impact of the tariff hike on the poor should be mitigated by the strong social safety net. And in addition to that, Sri Lanka should implement structural reforms to make the electricity sector more efficient and improve the governance of state-owned enterprises more generally. That should lower the cost of electricity in the medium and long term. And that's something that the authorities are working on.
Meanwhile, State Minister of Finance Shehan Semasinga said that a specific timeline cannot be given on when the second tranche of the International Monetary Fund disbursement would be physically received in Sri Lanka. The minister further said that the restructuring process of state-owned enterprises will be fast-tracked as the Treasury is now unable to bear the losses of these firms any longer.
මට මේ මොහොතේ ගත වෙන කාල සීමාව කියන්න බෑ. නමුත් ඒ දෙවනි වාරිකය ලබා ගැනීමට ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදලේ විධායක මණ්ඩලය අපේ කාර්ය මණ්ඩල එකගතාවය අනුමත කිරීම අවශ්‍යයි. ඒ අනුව ඔවුන් විසින් දින නියම කරලා තමයි විධායක මණ්ඩලයේ මේ පිළිබඳව සාකච්ඡාවට ගැනෙන්නේ. ඉතින් රාජ්‍ය ව්‍යාපාර ප්‍රතිවගතකරණය වේගවත් කරන්න රජය කටයුතු කරනවා. මොකද රාජ්‍ය ව්‍යාපාර ඵලදායී නොවන ආකාරයට පවත්වාගෙන ගියොත් එහි බර මීට වඩා වැඩි ප්‍රමාණයක් ජනතාවට පැටවීමට තියෙන ප්‍රවණතාවය වැඩි වෙනවා. මොකද මහ භාණ්ඩාගාරයට එහි අලාභ පියවා ගන්න බැරි හින්දා.
According to the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment, the body of a 65-year-old Sri Lankan woman was recovered from the rubble of a building that was destroyed in Lebanon yesterday. The deceased has been identified as a resident of the Matara area. On Tuesday, the Sri Lankan embassy in Beirut confirmed that a Sri Lankan woman was reported among several persons trapped under the rubble following the collapse of a residential building in Lebanon. The 5-story building in Lebanon collapsed on Monday, leaving only 3 floors standing. The building owners have said that the structure had shown cracks following the devastating Beirut explosion, but it was promptly repaired, while the Director General of Lebanese Civil Defense attributed the tragedy to 2 failed columns and recent flooding. President Ranil Wickremesinghe expressed his views on the ongoing tensions in the Middle East, claiming that innocent Palestinian citizens should not be victimized during the violent exchanges between the Hamas and Israeli forces. Speaking at an event, the President further highlighted that Sri Lanka is committed to supporting the activities of the United Nations Secretary General in resolving the matter and ushering peace to the region.
The National Miladun Nabi celebration was held at the Musali National School Stadium in Mannar this morning, which was jointly organized by the Ministry of Buddha Sasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs and the Department of Muslim Religious and Cultural Affairs.
අපේ ප්‍රතිපත්තිය හැම ආගමටම සැලකීමක් ඇති කරන්න. හැම එක්කෙනාට සමාන අයිතිවාසිකම් ලබා දෙන්න. ගාසා තීරුවට ආහාර ගෙනහිල්ලා ලොරි 20ක් ගෙනින් තියෙනවා. ඉතින් මං අහන්නේ එක ප්‍රශ්නයයි ලක්ෂ 20කට ලොරි 20කින් කෑම දෙන්න පුළුවන්ද? ඉස්රේල් හමාස් සටනේ ගාසාවේ පැලස්තීන ජනතාව හිර වෙලා තියෙනවා. අපි ඒකට අනුමත කරන්නේ නැහැ. අපි කියන්නේ වහාම ආහාර ලබා දෙන්න. ඊජිප්තුවේ පැත්තෙන් විතරක් නෙමෙයි ඉස්රේලේ පැත්තෙන්ුත් ඒ ආහාර යවර දෙන්න ඕනේ. ඉස්රේල් හමාස් සටන එක ප්‍රශ්නයක්. මේ අරගලේදී සාමාන්‍ය පලස්තීන ජනතාව මේකට ගොදුරු වෙන්න හොඳ නැහැ. මම විශේෂයෙන්ම එක්සත් ජාතීන්ගේ මණ්ඩලේ මහලේකම්තුමාගේ ඒ වැඩ කටයුතු වලට අපේ සම්පූර්ණ සහයෝගය තියෙනවා. මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ විසඳලා ඒ ප්‍රදේශවලට සාමය ඇති කරන්න ඒ කරන ගමන් පලස්තීන රාජ්‍යයකුත් බිහි වෙන්න උවමනයි.
Speaking of which, I have a small update on the issues in Israel and Hamas right after this short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. During a parliamentary committee on public accounts hearing held yesterday, attention was drawn to data collected by the Department of the Registrar of Companies, which indicated that reports of more than 600,000 companies had not been submitted as required. The committee also raised concerns over a deficit recorded in the income accounts of the Department of Registrars of Companies. Further, COPA Chairman Lasantha Alagiyawana queried the possibility of identifying the respective companies that have not submitted annual reports as required by law.
Director ICT නැද්ද? ICT director කෙනෙක් අපිට නෑ ගරු සභාපතිතුමනි. ඉතින් මේ කාඩ් එකේ තියෙනවනේ. එයි බඳව ගන්න. ඩිලීම් කරලා තියෙනවා ගරු සභාපතිතුමනි. ඒක අනුයුක්ත කරලා නැහැ. දැන් assistant director ICT මේ ICTO මේ කවුරු මොනවත්ම නැද්ද කවුරු?
කිසිම නිලධාරියෙක්ද?
දැන් පළවෙනි එක සමාගම් පරීක්ෂා දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ ICT කෙනෙක් ඕනේ නැද්ද?
අවශ්‍යයි.
ඉතින් අවශ්‍ය නම් ඉතින් මොකද්ද ඔයාලා කරන්නේ?
අපිට බඳව ගන්න කියන්නේ IT සර්විස් එකෙන්. ගවර්න්මන්ට් එකේ IT සර්විස් එකේ සැලරි එකට අපිට එන්නේ නැහැ කවුරුවක්වත්. අපි ගිය සතියේ අපේ ස්ටියරින් කමිටි මීටින් එකේදී අපි ඩිසිෂන් එකක් ගත්තා. කොන්ට්‍රැක්ට් බේසික් අපි 1 year මාකට් සැලරි එක ගෙවලා ගන්න අපි ස්ටියරින් කමිටි එකේ ඩිසිෂන් එකක් ගත්තා.
ඔයගොල්ලෝ වාර්ෂික වාර්තා 6 ලක්ෂ ගාණක් ගොනු වෙලා නැහැ. හිඟ ආදායමක් තියෙනවා ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ ආදායම් ගිණුමේ.
2007 වර්ෂයේ ඉඳලම මේ එකතුව තමයි ගාණක් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
පොඩ්ඩක් පැහැදිලි කරන්න මේ හිඟ ආදායම මොකෙන්ද ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ? මොනකට ගෙවිය යුතුද?
ඇනුවල් රිටර්න් එකක් ගොනු කරාම ඒ ගොනු කිරීමේදී ෆී එකක්.
හරි. අර ඉදිරිපත් නොකරපුවාම නීතිමය වශයෙන් තියෙන තත්ත්වෙ මොකක්ද?
ඔවුන්ට විරුද්ධව නඩු පවරන්න.
ඉතින් ඔයාලගේ වෙබ්සයිට් එකේ මේ ලිස්ට් එක දාන්න. ඒක වැඩ ඉවරනේ. මෙන්න මේ සමාගම් මේක ගෙවලා තියෙන්නේ. මෙන්න මේ සමාගම් ටික මේ බ්ලැක් ලිස්ට් කරලා මේකල් තියෙන්නේ කියලා. ඉතින් ඇයි එහෙම කරන්න බැරි ඇයි? සමාගම් රෙජිස්ට්‍රාර් දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ තියෙනවද මැනුවල් හෝ සිස්ටම් එකකින් හෝ මොන සමාගම්ද ලියාපදිංචි වෙලා තිබෙන්නේ දැනට සක්‍රියව කීයද සල්ලි ගෙවලා නැත්තේ මොනවද ඇනුවල් රිපෝට්ස් ඉදිරිපත් කරලා නැත්තේ මොනවද කියලා ඔයාලට තොරතුරක් ගන්න බැයිද?
රිපෝට්ස් ඉදිරිපත් නොකරන සමාගම් බෑක් එන්ඩ් යූසර් කෙනෙකුට සොයා ගැනීමට හැකියාවක් නැහැ.
3 people were reported injured following a shootout in Ahungala last night. While all 3 victims were rushed to the Balapitiya base hospital for treatment, thankfully no one has been reported to be in critical condition. Meanwhile, over 212 grams of heroin and crystal methamphetamine, also known as ice, was recovered by the Sri Lankan Navy and the Police Narcotics Bureau in the seas off Dondra Point earlier this morning. The street value of the confiscated narcotics is estimated at 4 billion rupees. With that, here's a look at more news from across the island in brief.
A family of 3 was reportedly injured in a shooting incident in Ahungala last night. All 3 people were subsequently admitted to the Balapitiya base hospital. None of the family members were reported to be in critical condition following the incident. While police investigations into the matter are currently underway, the reason behind the shooting is yet to be uncovered. During a joint operation conducted by the Sri Lanka Navy and the Police Narcotics Bureau, over 212 kilograms of heroin and crystal methamphetamine were discovered from a fishing trawler this morning in the seas of Dondra Point. The street value of the seized consignment of drugs weighing around 212 kilograms and 350 grams is believed to be over 4 billion rupees. The suspects, along with the stock of narcotic drugs and the fishing trawler, were handed over to the Police Narcotics Bureau for onward legal action. In the meantime, a 43-year-old was apprehended yesterday in the Sapukaskanda Makula area, along with a stock of crystal methamphetamine and heroin by the Police Special Task Force. The police revealed that 1 kilogram and 32 grams of crystal methamphetamine and 506 grams of heroin were found in the suspect's possession. Moreover, a car, 2 number plates belonging to another car and a motorcycle in the possession of the suspect were also taken into custody by the police.
Sri Lanka's ambassador to Israel, Nimal Bandara, says that a DNA test is to be conducted as the body of Anula Ratnayaka, who died in the Hamas attacks, is in a sadly unrecognizable state. Bandara said that the family of Ratnayaka has agreed to send DNA samples and a final decision confirming her remains will be given in a few days. In the meantime, Israel has intensified its attacks on Gaza and has commenced airstrikes on the West Bank, in addition to the attacks in Gaza, as they remain committed to permanently eradicating the threat of the Hamas terrorist network, following years of assault by Hamas on Israeli soil.
The first batch of humanitarian aid was supplied to the Gaza Strip yesterday, providing some relief to its 2.2 million residents after the Gaza Strip was left isolated without water, food, electricity and fuel for half a month. The first batch of food supplies passed through Gaza following a successful deal, allowing some supplies through Egypt's Rafah crossing. In response to the Hamas attack, Israel cut off the electricity supply to the Gaza Strip about a fortnight ago. Subsequently, essential services in the hospitals were conducted using stored fuel. However, the diminishing stocks of fuel posed an imminent danger to the lives of children receiving treatment within the hospitals. An Israel Defense Force spokesman said that the Israel Defense Forces will continue to launch attacks on Gaza. Against this backdrop, an airstrike was launched by Israel in the occupied West Bank, with Palestinian officials reporting that at least 2 people were killed in the attack and 3 others injured. The West Bank is home to 3 million Palestinians. Under these circumstances, the United States is preparing to establish a THAAD missile defense system or terminal high altitude area defense in the Middle East region. The missile system has the ability to destroy short and medium-range missiles. Concurrently, the US states is preparing to deploy additional fleets to the region, considering the attacks targeting American forces in Syria and Iraq. Speaking to AdaDerana, Sri Lankan Ambassador Nimal Bandara said that the body of Anula Ratnayaka, who died in Israel due to the Hamas attack, is currently in an unrecognizable state. Accordingly, he added that plans are underway to collect DNA samples of her family members to carry out a DNA test to identify the body.
We were waiting to hand over human remains of Miss Anula Ratnayaka. However, the Israel authority mentioned that it is better if we can get DNA sample of their family members due to the final check of her human remains. Therefore, I communicated with the family members of late Mr. Anula Ratnayaka, and her daughter and son agreed to submit the DNA sample to us, and they already visited the lab for the requested test. In addition, her mother also in California and her sister is living in Kuwait. Both people agree to submit their DNA also, and it will take few days. After getting those DNA samples, the expert on the DNA here, he will communicate with the relevant senior officer in the hospital lab. Finally, they will get the final decision regarding the human remains as well as the DNA sample, how to match and how to get the conclusion regarding her body and their DNA sample. 17 people are still in the Gaza Strip. Out of 15 people, they are in the Sri Lankan passport, and the other 2 using the Palestine passport. And those people are ready to go through the border to Egypt. We communicated with those details with the Minister of Foreign Affairs here. Also, our Ramallah office submitted those details to their authority, and our embassy in Cairo doing the communication with Egypt government to get visa for them. I hope after borders open, the foreign passport holders to go back to their own country. Sri Lankan people also will get the facility to enter Israel to Egypt, and our embassy in Egypt will facilitate for those 17 people.
Sri Lanka's tea sector data shows that revenue from tea exports have gone up by 1.8% in September from a year earlier to $119.9 million. Meanwhile, Fitch Ratings has affirmed Sri Lanka's conglomerate Melster Corp at AAA with a stable outlook. With that, let's take a look at the latest in Sri Lanka's corporate sector today.
According to industry data, Sri Lanka's tea export revenues grew 1.8% in September this year to $119.9 million amid a rise in volume and fall in the average price. Data from Ceylon Tea Brokers showed that tea exports grew to 23.16 million kilograms in September from 21.54 million last year. Total export volumes up to September were down to 181 million kilos from 192 million kilos last year. Fitch Ratings has affirmed the national long-term ratings of Sri Lanka-based conglomerate Melster Co plc and its subsidiary Distilleries Company Limited at AAA with a stable outlook. The rating agency said it equalizes the rating of distilleries, which has a stronger credit profile than its parent Melster Corp, to the consolidated profile of its parent based on the parent and subsidiary linkage rating criteria. The affirmation and the stable outlook reflect Fitch's view that Melster Corp will remain a strong credit profile in the next 12 to 18 months despite weak demand conditions for its core spirit business. The firm said it included Melster Co's 51% share of its subsidiary Aitken Spence plc but excluded its insurance business Continental Insurance Lanka Limited in assessing Melster Co's credit profile. H&B Assurance plc has won the Best of Sri Lanka award at the 37th Annual International ARC Awards held in New York recently. The annual International ARC Awards honors organizations worldwide for their annual report publications, setting the benchmark for annual reports.
That's all the news I have for you for this evening. This is Jonathan Benedict. Have a good night and a blessed week ahead.